What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back trying to talk about some rugby because there's no rugby on this weekend. It's super annoying. It's such a shame. We've had 2 good rounds of rugby so far, but obviously we have the week break now. Round 3 won't be coming up, so I thought it might be fun to do who do I think should be picked for the games coming up. I thought that might just be a bit of fun. This is all going to be super hypothetical. It's going to be based on sort of who I think might get picked, but also people I want to see in the team of who could get picked. So I'll do a video for every single game because I thought it'd be a bit of fun. So we'll start off with this first one. It's going to be Ireland versus Italy. So let's start off with the Ireland team. I think the Ireland team are pretty set in how they're doing. They've got a little bit unlucky so far that they haven't been able to actually win a game. They could have arguably won both games they've played so far had they just found that extra 10%. So I think going into this Italy game, they don't need to do an awful lot of changes, but they certainly need to come away with a win and probably a bonus point to that just to try and raise their spirits a bit. So looking at the starting team I would have play for them, we start off with Healy, Kelleher and Porter. A couple of people might think, that's interesting, he swapped over to Kelleher. But Kelleher to me was very impressive coming on in that game last week, managing to get himself a try super early in that game as soon as he came on. So I think he's got a lot to prove in there. I think the 1-2-3 has been pretty set for Ireland, so I'd like to see them mix up a little bit, and I think Italy's the team to mix up your team a little bit. So I'd like to see Kelleher go in that front row. I think Porter's playing well. He would take that 3 position. At 4 and 5, I'm not sure about injury statistics. This sort of list that I've come up with is going to be a bit off and on depending on how people come back from injuries and so on. But I do believe that James Ryan is still involved with his concussion thing, so I don't think he'll be coming back. So my 4 and 5 is going to be Tyburn, who I think is playing very well in that first game, lesser in the second game, but still playing to quite a high standard. And then Henderson, I thought actually had quite a decent game coming in at 5, and would most likely take the captaincy if he was coming in and taking that 5 shirt. At 6, Rhys Ruddock played very well for me. Looking forward to seeing a bit more from him next week. So he's going to go in. I think he'll make a good position 6 with, of course, Peter O'Man. He's still under his ban from his red card. Van der Fleer is doing very well at 7, so he's going to remain a set 7 for me. And CJ Stander at 8 is playing out of his skin. So I think the 1 to 8 there is pretty set. The only change I'm going to make there is going to be Kelleher coming in at that number 2 position from the sort of last game they played. At number 9, I don't know if Conor Murray's going to come back from his hamstring injury, but if he doesn't, the person I would like to see come in here has to be KC. I would love to see him get some time. Of course, Jameson Gibson-Park, sort of like their main number 2 scrum half, but for me, I would love to see a bit more from KC and maybe give him a game starting. I think Italy's the game to give him a start against, and to be honest, Jameson Gibson-Park's not playing 100% perfectly, so I think it'll be a good chance to see KC in action, see how he gets on. Similarly, with the number 10, I want to see Ross Byrne start this game. Billy Burns hasn't been impressing me at all, really. His in-game form isn't terrible, but his kicking's been very subpar, and even when Sexton didn't have his concussion, I don't think Sexton was doing too well. I rate Ross Byrne very highly and wish he got a bit more time, and I think Italy is the team to put him on starting, give him that experience, and let him start a few more games over Billy Byrne. So I'd pick Ross Byrne as my number 10. The back row I'm going to change up a little bit. James Lowe for me has been so impressive. He has absolutely dominated that 11 position. I don't think he needs to prove anymore how good he is. So I think this gives time to switch up your back row a little bit. I personally would move Keenan onto that left wing. We saw how good he was in the last Six Nations especially. He can play 11 or 14. He's been playing a lot of 15 so far in this tournament. I'd like to see him on the wing, give him a bit more chance to maybe get some tries, get a bit more effort into the game. He gets a little bit stuck in that backfield. So I'm going to put Keenan on my left wing. And then moving on to the centres, I think the centre partnership's pretty strong. I haven't heard about any injuries. I did see that Henshaw had a bit of a knock, but Henshaw and Ringrose for me are the set 12 and 13. I think they're playing very well, and it's a tried and tested method for them now in the Six Nations. They're both working very well together, so I'm going to stick with Henshaw and Ringrose for my 12 and 13. At number 14, I think that Keith Earls has been playing pretty well, certainly to a good to average level of rugby. I think 14 is probably one of the few shirts people could look to take away. He hasn't played bad by any means, but I think Italy is a good chance to test some new players in that right wing. Personally, someone I'd like to see come back in is Andrew Conway. He was named for the team to come in right before the tournament. I believe he's still there. I haven't seen anything to contradict that. So I'd like to see Andrew Conway get back into this game, maybe play in that right wing shirt, give him a bit of time. So Andrew Conway's going to take my 14. And then finally, Jordan Lama. I would want to come in at 15. I rate Jordan Lama very highly, but he keeps being brought on in these games in like the 68th minute and stuff. It's not enough time for him to show off. And I think by moving Keenan to that left wing, you can put Jordan Lama on at that fullback position where I know he's so good. And I think that's a pretty strong 1 to 15 for Ireland. Looking at the subs for them, Of course, we're going to have pretty much the same replacement three they love in that Ireland team. I would have Herring, Byrne and Furlong in that 16, 17, 18. I think that's a solid replacement three to have on later in the game in that second half. At 19, Delan, I think he actually had quite a good game the last time I saw him, so I'd like to see him come on. I imagine, again, it'd be a second half thing. And he's a very decent guy, to be fair. I think he's pretty solid all round in his game, so I'd like to see him have a bit more time. At 20, I'd like to have Connors coming on. I think the reason I've done this is mainly because I'm aware that Connors can play flanker or also number 8. So to me, it gives them a bit of versatility there. Whether you have any injuries in the 6, 7 or 8 department, Connors can come on. It reinforces that back row a little bit. So I'd like to see Will Connors coming on there. At 21, of course, Gibson Park. That's mainly down to I don't know if Conor Murray's going to come back or not. So I'm going to keep Gibson Park as my backup scrum half. At number 22, of course, you're going to need a replacement fly half. So that to me is where Billy Burns would come in, who I've just realised because I wrote down the name Burns spelt that way so much, I've actually misspelt Burns' name. So we'll try and do a quick correction there to try and fix that. Of course, it's one of my videos. You know there's going to be something wrong somewhere. And then at 23, I would have James Lowe coming in just to reinforce in that second half. Had the game gone completely awry, not as they were all expecting, I think bringing on James Lowe in that second half, maybe put him on the wing. You could even take Jordan Larmour off and move Keenan back to fullback. You could take Keenan off if you wanted to. You could take Conway off. You could do anything you wanted to as long as you got back onto that wing. And then you could allow him to play as he wanted to. And I think if he came on against a tired Italy team, he'd definitely be able to get some tries. So that for me would be the 23 I want to see coming in to this Ireland team in Ireland versus Italy. Moving on, of course, to the counterparts, Italy. Let's check out what I think for their team. And it's going to be a little bit different to how I know Franco Smith would do it. Franco Smith loves to put his main props on the bench to bring them on later to sort of reinforce. But obviously, that's not what I'm going to be doing. I want to put on the best team I think they have at the minute. So, of course, Fischetti, Bigi and Zilocci would all be up there in the front three. I think they're the best currently. They do have a couple of injuries across the board, but they're all sort of on and off injuries in that front row. People have taken little knocks, but I'm not, as far as I'm aware, no one's actually been sent home. Lazzaroni and TC, I think 4 and 5 is pretty set for them. I think they're doing very well. Negri, I would have in at 6. Johan Meyer, who I believe has had a little knock, but there's no reason he shouldn't be playing. And the one big change I would do is I want to see a bit more of Mbanda. I'd like to see him play in that number 8 position. He came on in that first game and he did impress me. He seems very, very aggressive. I just think he needs a bit more time. I'm aware he took a knock in his first game and that's why he missed out. So hopefully he manages to recover from that knock, but I'm going to put Mbanda at that number 8. 9 and 10, I think Stephen Varney and Garbisi are working very well together. To me, there's no real need to change this. I think they're doing very well. Garbisi especially is being a real big attacking threat, and Varney's being very aggressive in that number 9 spot. Quick balls coming out. He's currently the top passer in the Six Nations from those rucks, so he's doing very well in terms of speed, delivery of the ball, so I think there's no point changing them there. At 11, Ioane, I think he's doing brilliantly. I think he would have had 2 tries. I believe he had 1 disallowed. He's had 1 that went very well for him. Looking good on that left wing, no reason to change that for me. At 12 and 13, of course, Zanon has now gone out. So the mix-up's going to have to come in here. I would have Canner at 12 and Ignacio Brex, who's playing very well. Been really impressed by him. Coming in as someone I didn't even know of before the Six Nations. He's come in and really impressed me. He gets my number 13 shirt. And with Zanon out, it means that Bellini has been introduced into the side. So there's going to be a bit of a switch up here. To me, Trula hasn't been impressing as much to be in that starting 15. So what I would do here is move Sporandio down to that 15 position. I've seen him play fullback. He's good at fullback. I don't know why Italy keep trying to play Trula at fullback when Sporandio is so good. And with Bellini now in the team, because Zanon has gone out, I would move Bellini onto that 14 wing. Some people that know a little bit more about Italian rugby may know whether Bellini and Ioane could swap to be an 11 and 14. But for me, all I've seen a lot of Ioane's playing is that left wing. And I have seen Bellini play on the right wing before. So I think he could go in both games. And then, of course, Sporandio in that 15 shirt, who I think is defensively pretty sound. I think he's done well so far. I'd like to see him play fullback. Looking at their subs for them, of course, there's not going to be a great deal of changes. Most of them are going to be the people I've taken off are just going to be here. Of course, Lavotti, Lucchesi and Riccioni are going to come on at some point in there. This is not how Franco Smith likes to do it. Of course, he wants to have the stronger props on the bench so they can come on later. Lamara, of course, will come on later. He'll probably go in that number 8 position. Someone that I would like to see in a little bit more, Callum Brayley is what I give number 21 to. I really rate him very highly. I even said in my big prediction video before the tournament began, I would pick him over Stephen Varney, the the Italian coach knows more than me about Italian rugby, so he's disagreed with me there, but I'd love to see a bit more Callum Brayley. Think he's a really solid player. 22, of course, has to go to Tommaso Alan. He's been solid for Italy. In fact, he hasn't really messed up at all since he's come on the pitch, but he just isn't quite at the standard that Garbisi's playing at the minute. And then because I'm not really sure who would play multiple positions, I think it's worth having Trula on the bench. I just think it's worth taking him out of that starting 15. He can come on at wing or full-back, depending on injuries or fatigue kicking in. So I think he's a good replacement to have on a bit of a super sub just to cover multiple positions. But I think overall that's a pretty solid 23 for Italy. So what do you guys think? Is this a solid team? Is there any changes you would make? Let me know down in the comments if you think the team's good, if these are the teams you think we could be seeing, if you think you'd make any changes. Who are you most looking forward to seeing in these games coming up? Who do you want to see as a bit of a standout player really take that extra step? I love reading some of the comments, especially about rugby. It's a sport I absolutely love to get involved with, so make sure you drop it down in the comments. I'm going to do one of these for every single game coming up in round 3, so make sure you subscribe to the channel just to keep up to date when I release those videos as well. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.